Well, it's good to have you back for another day of Bible study as we are continuing on our journey looking at the Enneagram personality test. And we're doing that by looking at 36 characters from the Bible. This week we are looking at type 2, the helper personality. www.christtable.today. If you have not been there, I want to encourage you. What are you waiting for? Sign up for our email list there and also consider donating to Christ Table, as these Bible studies only come through those of you who commit to regular donations. And you can set up a regular recurring donation there, and we would appreciate that a lot. I also want to make sure that you are aware we have some additional resources to help you through this Bible study. And if you visit go.christtable.today/BU, you're going to be able to download an Enneagram personality test there so that you can see exactly which one of the 9 personality types in the Enneagram best fit you. You can also download an entire schedule for this Bible study, all of the 36 characters, all of the weeks, as well as all of the reading schedule there by PDF. And we'll also put there a link to the book that is the foundation of this study. And it's, here it is somewhere around here, Ian Crone's The Road Back to You. And so we would love to have you pull this off of Amazon, order it, and read alongside us. And you can participate in a book club as well about this book. In fact, tonight we will be online at go.christtable.today/discuss at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about chapter 6, which conveniently is the chapter that discusses the type 2 helper personality. Let's dig in. When we talk about the helper personality, there are a lot of places that we can go in the Bible to see examples of this individual. The wonderful thing about the helper personality is these folks are extremely likable because they are extremely helpful. And today we find ourselves in the book of Ruth, though we're not focusing on Ruth as much today as we are focusing on Boaz in Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 through 17. Now, Boaz exhibits the characteristics of a helper. If you're not sure exactly what the characteristics of a helper are, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you. Their basic desire is to feel loved and to feel needed. They have a concern, though. The fear for a helper personality is being unloved or simply being taken for granted for all of the things that they do. And because they are so driven by helping other people, it can become a source of pride. And that can be a dangerous thing. What is it they say? Pride goes before stumbling and a fall. And so it's something that helpers have to kind of keep in check, the pride. Now, if you're questioning whether or not you are a helper personality or know someone who's a helper personality, maybe these words, if they're descriptive of you or that person, are a good indication that you may fall into that category. Friendly, empathetic, someone who's generous, hospitable, even over accommodating. If you're a little sensitive to criticism, you might be a helper. Self-sacrificing, loyal, a cheerleader, or even a people pleaser. Some of those words are descriptive of the individual that we're going to talk about today for just a few moments, Boaz. In the book of Ruth, Boaz happens to own the fields in the area where Ruth has come to live with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Now, the book of Ruth is incredible, and I might even encourage you to read outside of our reading for today, and maybe at some point just sit down and read the entire book of Ruth. It is quite a love story, and Ruth is quite an amazing, incredible individual. She is matched, though, in awesomeness by Boaz, whom we meet here. While she was there in the field, which is owned by Boaz, he arrives from Bethlehem and greets the harvesters. The Lord be with you, he says, of those people who are working for him, harvesting the fields. The Lord bless you, the harvesters replied. Then Boaz asked his foreman, noticing Ruth over on the edges of the field, who is that young woman over there? Who does she belong to? She catches his eye. And the foreman replies, she is the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the harvesters. She has been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes rest in the shelter. This is rather common in those days in that people in need would follow behind harvesters in order to pick up any grain or anything that was left behind. This was almost essential to helping other people survive in the community who didn't own anything and were in need, which Ruth and Naomi would have been. They had no means of support. They couldn't go out and get a job, so they relied on their own ability to scrounge up enough for them to be able to survive. And so property owners, landowners like Boaz would allow and essentially were expected on the basis of law to allow others to come along behind them and gather up so that nothing ended up going to waste. And so this is why Ruth finds herself in the field of Boaz on this day as he has come back home from Bethlehem. Now, interestingly, there, to help, you have to notice. And we're going to see as the story presses forward that Boaz helps Ruth in a way that goes above and beyond the minimal expectations. But had he not noticed her and her need, it seems as though he's already aware of the story of Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. And so it seems as though either he or somebody else has noticed them in the community, has listened, and their story now precedes them. And so Boaz takes notice. Whether you are a type 2 helper personality or not, you and I am going to miss so many of the opportunities to do radically incredible things for other people who are in need on behalf of God, being his hands and his feet, if we aren't going through life with our eyes open. Boaz walks into the field with his eye open, notices Ruth, and inquires. He pays attention. Many of us want to be helpful people. Even if that's not our sweet spot, even though that's not our personality type, many of us we need to be needed. We like to give assistance to other people. And in order to do that, we have to open our eyes and be willing to take action. And oftentimes the action whom we take people for, that the actions that we do on behalf of others, sometimes are not on behalf of the people who we would prefer to help. But in God's kingdom, we don't get to choose who we help. We help those whom God sends our way. So Boaz notices Ruth, and so he goes over and carries on a conversation with her. Listen, my daughter, stay right here with us. When you gather grain, don't go to any other fields, which would have been normal. They wouldn't have been able to get enough, usually from the leftovers of one field, so they would have had to have gone to multiple fields. Stay right here behind the young women working in my field. See which part of the field they're harvesting, and then follow them. So Boaz not only notices, but he engages and tells her exactly what to do. Don't go anywhere else. Follow behind the young women who are working in the field. See which part of the field the young women are harvesting in, and then follow them. I've warned the young men to not treat you roughly. When you're thirsty, you are allowed to help yourself from the water that the men have drawn from the well. So this is extraordinary kindness. This is extraordinary helpfulness. This is not only unusual, but it's also unexpected to the point of being obscene. The help that he is giving to Ruth here in this moment. This should be the definition of what it means to be a follower of Christ. Whether or not it's your personality trait, a helper who shows exceptional kindness, going above and beyond to the point of obscene levels of helpfulness to other people. If followers of Christ were known for that rather than known for so many other things, the world would be a different place. And the perception of followers of Christ would be a different place. But I also want to say here that what Boaz shows is helping someone doesn't really always mean doing everything for them. Now this is important, especially for someone who is that type 2 helper, because the drive is going to be the more that I do to help, the more love I'm going to receive, and the better I'm going to feel. And so it becomes something of a drug, helping other people, doing everything for other people. It's that pride within us. They need me. They have to have me. If I'm not here, it won't get done. It won't get done well. And so we place ourselves at the center of it, and we overhelp to our own detriment and ultimately to theirs. Don't do that. Boaz doesn't do that here. Boaz goes above and beyond, almost like we've said, to an obscene level of helpfulness, but Ruth still has skin in the game. He has not taken away her autonomy. He has not taken away her drive or her ability to be a part of providing for Naomi. Go far, but not too far, because when you go too far, you make it about you. Ruth falls at his feet, thanking him warmly. What have I done to deserve such kindness? She asks. I'm a foreigner. I'm not even Jewish. I know, Boaz says, but I also know about everything you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. Your story always goes before you. There are parts of your story you don't get to write, like the death of your husband. She didn't get to write that part of the story. She did, though, get to write the part of the story as to what she did afterwards, and that was take care of her dead husband's mother, Naomi. She wrote a great story. And because of that, Boaz recognizes the greatness of the story and the greatness in her and shows exceptional kindness. I have heard how you have left your father and mother and your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done. He offers a blessing, a benediction to her. And she replies simply, I hope I continue to please you, sir. Twos can be unaware of unstated expectations and ulterior motives behind helpful behaviors. I say this because if you keep reading the story, you may notice or have already noticed that there is an interest here beyond simple, practical helpfulness. There's a physical, relational, emotional connection here between these two. And a soap opera love story is going to develop between them. Now, how much of that was driving Boaz's helpfulness? How much of that physical attraction was driving his helpfulness, and how much of his spiritual centeredness was driving his helpfulness? We don't know. But the danger here for twos is that they can sometimes be blind to what is driving their helpful behaviors. And whenever we become blind to what's driving our behaviors, we have the potential of getting in a very bad situation. And this is a real warning situation for twos, for helpers. of being self-aware enough, the need for helpers to be self-aware enough to be able to reflect and dig deeply and honestly inside of ourselves into what is driving this need for helpfulness. Is it something within ourselves? Is it an ulterior motive? Because that's usury, that's ungodly. Sometimes that's codependence. Twos maybe more than many other personality types do well in counseling situations that enable them to reflect on motives and expectations of themselves and others. Is everything a two does foundationally coming from an ulterior motive or expectation? No, absolutely not. But if it is, it can be very dangerous. So be aware. Until tomorrow, happy reading.